Okay, this is episode 19, and in today's video we are talking about clothing options for a headshot session. First thing I should say is that I like my clients to be able to bring a lot of variety to a shoot. The worst thing that you can do is bring, say, 2 or 3 options that are really similar to each other, because we're just going to be stuck with those. If we bring a lot more choices than we need, say 5 or 10, then we can really narrow down exactly what we're going to be able to use during the shoot. We can really pick out the best options. It also gives us a chance to be able to experiment, try different things and see what works. Now, rather than bring in, say, 5 or 6 options that are really similar to each other, like 5 black tops, I feel like what it's best off to do is think about differences in colour, texture and neckline. Colour's an important one to me because it allows us to be able to convey a different mood during a headshot session. Imagine if we were going for something that's quite serious, then cooler colours like blues and greens and blacks are going to work really well, whereas if we're going for something that's a little bit more friendly and light-hearted, then warmer colours will tend to work better. Things like grey can work really well, as can like mustards and reds and stuff like that. Different textures are really important too, because that will allow us to get a little bit more variety. If we just have a load of cotton shirts, then they're all going to look very similar to each other, whereas if we have things like jackets or jumpers, shirts or t-shirts, then we'll get lots of options to be able to choose from during the shoot. Differences in neckline will really make a big variety to the images that we shoot as well. If we have something that's quite high up, it might appear to be a little bit more classical compared to something that's a little bit more lower cut. Sometimes off the shoulders can be quite nice, especially if we show off the collarbones and things like that too, but it's really a case of experimenting with each person and seeing what works best for you. There isn't really much that I tend to say no to trying during a headshot session. I'm all game for saying let's try something and see if it works. One thing that I tend to avoid is really detailed patterns. Now, some patterns can be really nice, what I would call like a lumberjack top can work well, as can some floral patterns. But if we've got anything that's really detailed and busy, then that can be quite distracting. I feel like it can sometimes take the focus away from you and it becomes more about the clothing, which is bad. White is something that I tend to avoid during a headshot. And it's only because white can suddenly become the brightest thing in a picture, so it can be quite distracting, but also it tends to cast a reflection just underneath people's chins, and that can really take away from the jawline. I think that's a bad thing to be able to do. Now, saying that, I am constantly proven wrong with white. Some whites tend to work really well, some don't. It's really a case of experimenting. If you've got a white shirt that you want to try during a headshot, bring it with you, we'll see what it looks like in an image, and then we'll go from there. One thing that tends to work well as a replacement for white is a really light grey colour and also like a cream colour. They can really easily replace white in a headshot. New clothes will typically look better than what older clothes will. Now, I'm not talking about vintage stuff that has its place, but a new t-shirt rather than a t-shirt that's a couple of months old will look usually a lot nicer. I'm not saying that you have to go out and buy a load of new stuff for a shoot, but it can just be nice to be able to have new clothing to be able to wear. If you keep the tags and keep the receipt, maybe you can return it afterwards, that's totally up to you. One thing I'd really stress as being important is that buy clothes that you would normally wear. Don't buy something that's extravagant that you wouldn't wear, because then it won't reflect what you are like in your headshot. Make sure that your clothes are clean and ironed before the shoot. We do have an iron here in the studio, so if we need to just give them a quick once over before we start shooting, then that's easy to be able to do. So just to summarise, bring lots of variety in terms of different colours, different necklines, different textures. Bring far too many options than you think that you might need. We can really narrow down choices during the shoot, so we don't have to be stuck with just a few options. Avoid really busy patterns. Bring a white top if you want to, and we'll try it out and see how well it works. And more importantly, you should wear clothes that you feel comfortable and confident in. If you're wearing something that you're happy in, then usually that's going to reflect well in the picture. If you're wearing something that you're not very comfortable in, or you just don't like, or you're not sure about, then that's also going to reflect in the picture. So just have a think about that. If you have any questions, if I've missed anything off from this, then ask in the comments below. I'll be happy to hear from you. And I will see you in tomorrow's video. I've had to move slightly because the sun's coming in through my window, and whilst it's really nice, it's super bright.